Okay, so a very interesting article came out today on Wired 868, and I just want to kind of go through some of the information on it. Referees demand respect, transparency, and timely payment. Downer retorts. Referees are not asking for special treatment or all of the pie. They are asking only for what they have already earned, their just due. They believe quite reasonably that their contribution to the sport is worth respect, transparency, and timely payment. It is time for the TTFA to address these issues decisively, resolve conflicts of interest, and demonstrate that referees are valued partners in the game and not an afterthought. So the following is a letter to the editor by a concerned football stakeholder on fees owed to Trinidad and Tobago referees, as well as response to those concerns by Trinidad and Tobago Football Association, second vice president, and referee committee chair, Oswold Downer. I hope you realize there's already a conflict of interest there, but let's go through the article. I write to again draw public attention to the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association's persistent failure to compensate referees for services already rendered and to raise serious concerns about governance, accountability, and conflict of interest within the organization. On October 31st, 2025, referees were informed by Mr. Oswold Downer that following numerous discussions with the TTFA president, the payment of the arrears for the TTPFL's 2023-2024 season will be paid before the end of the 25-26 season based on a payment plan to be devised. To date, we have not heard a single word about this payment plan. Outside of a payment in January 2026, the arrears remain unpaid and the TTPFL Tier 1 has been completed weeks ago. So this is responses from Downer. We cannot pay that. The sports company gave the normalization committee money to run the league for the 23-24 TTPFL season, which would have included money to pay referees, but they were never paid. Not a blasted soul raised their voice at the time to Mr. Robert Haddad. We cannot come now in another year when the line item for it is not in the budget and use money allocated for something else to pay that. How can we use FIFA funds for that? Interesting. So, you're telling me that if you win an election or you get put in a spot knowing that people have previous pay, back pay we like to call it, that you're not paying that? Okay. And we cannot go back to the government and ask them for that money to pay that, as that was already given out. What we are trying to do is find a sponsor or raise money to see about that. Okay, how are we trying to raise this money? Based on the referees I spoke to, it's pretty unclear as to what is the way forward and how they're actually going to get the money. So again, a bunch of promises with no level of action. That's just what I've heard so far. Concerned stakeholder. In addition, referees have not been paid for TTPFL matches officiated between February and April, despite continuing to meet every professional obligation expected of them. Referees are required to remain professional at all times, covering transportation costs, maintaining fitness and certification standards, and attending mandatory training. But professionalism seems to be a one-way street. We're held to standards, but the association isn't. Ooh. An attempt to address these issues was made when a meeting with the TTFA president was scheduled for Sunday, 18th January 2026. Referees were formally notified on January 14 that the sole agenda item would be the matter of outstanding arrears. Match officials logged on onto the virtual platform and waited for approximately 35 minutes, only to receive a message indicating that the president was experiencing technical difficulties and could not attend. The meeting was effectively abandoned. In 2026, we can get internet to be able to have a important meeting. Sources allege that he was otherwise engaged with friends at the plantations in Tobago. I just reading what his statement says. I don't know. We arranged our lives to attend this meeting. Nobody thought it was necessary to show us the same respect. Downer. It was I, Mr. Downer, who called for that meeting and not the president of the TTFA. At the time, the president was in Tobago and he could not get Wi-Fi connection. That happens. Concerned stakeholder. Further frustration arose in January when referees were asked to officiate TTFA Invitational National Under-20 friendly matches with assurance that payment would be made immediately after the games. To date, no payments have been received, nor has any explanation been given. Every time we're told this one will be different, and every time it isn't. Downer. The TTFA gets two tranches, not sure, from FIFA in January and June of US $650,000 per tranche. Every time FIFA takes out $300,000 US to pay a 10-year loan that we obviously had nothing to do with. So when we have another tranche to come soon and all efforts will be made to get those paid. Concerned stakeholder. Compounding the issue is the increasingly untenable position of Mr. Downer, who simultaneously serves as TTFA second vice president and chairman of the referees committee. Kind of mentioned that before. It seems like a conflict of interest. That dual role raises unavoidable questions of conflict of interest and constitutional propriety. I didn't even read that line and kind of noticed that. It is unrealistic and arguably unconstitutional to expect one individual to fairly balance the competing interests of referees and the TTFA executive. The obvious question must be asked: who is ultimately being kept happier? Because clearly the referee is complaining. Judging by the continued negligence of referees' welfare, it is clear not the match officials. You cannot fight for us and answer to the same people who keep failing us. That almost seems too basic to explain further, but it's happening in the TTFA. Downer. The chairperson for all standing committees must be members of the executive committee. This is a rule from the FIFA regulations which must be followed. The FIFA regulations for the referee committee also say all members of the referees committee must be experienced former referees, and the chairman must be a widely experienced ex-referee. When you take all of these into consideration, who else on the executive can you take to be on the referees committee? I am the only one. Now let me just pause here a minute. I don't like to speak about people and their personal lives. Mr. Downer is 96, possibly very close to 97. I know we like to talk about succession planning and who is next. He is boldly making a statement that he's the only one that fits this criteria. So at 96 years, we have not figured out another person who could fill that role, because knock on wood, and God forbid, something happens to him. Then what? Concerned stakeholder. Despite this neglect, referees remain one of Trinidad and Tobago football's few consistent success stories. TTFA affiliated referees are keeping the country relevant on the international stage, with referees officiating at World Cups, CONCACAF finals, and major regional tournaments. That is true. We saw Mr. Caleb Wells, and we know we have others that are doing human service at high levels. These officials continue to earn respect abroad even as national teams struggle for results. Ironically, the only people flying the TTFA flag internationally are the same people being ignored at home. Development initiatives and promotional broadcasts frequently emphasize growth, yet the messages loses credibility when the welfare of referees is persistently sidelined. Football cannot exist without referees, as has been repeatedly stated within officiating circles. If referees don't referee, there is no football. Simple. Referees are not asking for special treatment or all of the pie. They are asking only for what they have already earned their just due. They believe quite reasonably that their contribution to the sport is worth respect, transparency, and timely payment. Passion does not pay the bills. Respect starts with honoring commitments. It is time for the TTFA to address these issues decisively, resolve conflicts of interest, and demonstrate that referees are valued partners in the game, not an afterthought. Downer. The TTFA has to wait on money to pay the TTPFL expenses, which comes in from the sports company. And the first people who have to get money is the teams to pay players, because these players have to get their salaries. The referees of Trinidad and Tobago are not professionals. Wait, what? The referees in Trinidad and Tobago are not professionals and should not be depending on their referee fees to pay diapers and so on. Wait, did he really say that? Referees ought to be people who are above reproach and not over concerned with fees. I wonder if he's getting paid. Just a question. When the money comes, it will be a welcome addition to your salary. And bear in mind that since we took office, that we have paid our TT 1.6 million to referees in all local competitions. As it stands, we have only 2 months outstanding, which is for February and March, as pay sheets for April have not been processed as yet. So, basically this article is, well, I mean, it's fair to kind of say that the concerned stakeholder seems to be a referee or seems to be somebody in the referee's corner who's been asking questions, and Mr. Downer clearly didn't hold back on how he felt and what he had to say. That second to last paragraph was kind of loud to me. The referees in Trinidad and Tobago are not professionals and should not be depending on their referee fees to pay diapers and so on. Referees ought to be people who are above reproach and not over concerned with fees. I really hope I read that wrong or read that out of context, but I'm reading it black and white as it is written in this document. And if that is the case, I can't see how this person fighting for me could tell me that I should not worry about what he is fighting for or supposed to be fighting for, and he seems to be siding with the other team, which again would circle back to the conflict of interest, right? So I know a couple of referees. I know some of the struggles that they are going through. I know that their TTFA has financial issues. There's no secret to that. but I think this is pretty harsh. 2023-2024 season that has gone. 25-26 season, well, 24-25, 25-26 season has gone. I guess people looking for back pay, and I don't see why not. So you tell me your thoughts. This article came out. I just tried to read it through. I tried to add my 2 cents as we go along. But really and truly, I would definitely like to hear from you, the public, because again, we once again in this situation where people are asking for what is due to them. So I don't know if you're running a charity league. I don't know. I'm not sure. But something seems to be wrong. Again, like, share, comment, subscribe. I definitely want to see the comments though. So tell me your thoughts.